Welcome, everybody, back to the Not a Rabbi podcast. This is episode 4 of season 3. And you may be asking yourself, hey, what happened to episode 3 of season 3? Last time you said it was episode 2, and now you're saying it's episode 4. What gives? Well, apparently I should have been an accountant because I can totally not count. And I lost count, and I thought it was episode 2 last time, which was actually last week. And here I am now at episode 4. I did correct that in the not in the post or anything like that, because I want to keep my mistakes alive and lead with my mistakes when I can. But what I wanted to do also was go ahead and apologize. Hey, I made a mistake, and it happens sometimes, unfortunately. This is why we are human, and that's about it for that. I think this is going to be a little bit of a briefer show than it has been in the past. Slow news week, which is typical for this time of year, because it is in America here. The end of the summer is winding down. A lot of people are taking vacations. Not a lot of news hitting the streets, and so I don't have any news content to really provide you with and to talk about. So what I thought I would do is go straight into some feedback, and I've got some interesting feedback, I think. One specific, a question on a podcast that we've done, and one a more general question. And so let's start with the feedback from the podcast itself. The listener says he listened to the podcast episode about Passover again, and I talked about selling the leaven, using a rabbi as an agent, and then leaving it in a locked cabinet. So the question is, do you buy it back at the end of Passover? Is there a non-Jew that the rabbi sells it to, knowing that this is just that is just temporarily theirs? Or are you all in ignorance about whether the leaven has been sold, since the rabbi is your agent and it might not have actually been sold? Okay, these are excellent questions. First point that I would like to make here is a key word that the listener used, which is he listened to the episode again. And I think that that's very important, and I think that everybody really needs to listen to the episodes multiple times, specifically because that really does help our numbers. No, kidding around with that. I'm just kidding around with that. But I'm just kidding. Anyhow, let's take a look let's go through this. Let's take this. I usually don't like to do this, but I want to try to take it in a procedural, chronological order here. So I'm going to take these questions out of order and how they're asked. I usually like to answer the questions the way that they're asked, but I'm going to do it in a little bit of a different way here. Question was, is there a non-Jew that the rabbi sells it to, knowing that this is leaven, is just temporarily theirs? Okay, so what happens is, and I think I mentioned this a little bit beforehand, and if I didn't make it clear enough, I do apologize for that, and I do appreciate the listener asking for the clarification. So what really happens here is that we are selling it. There is a non-Jew that does buy the all leaven products from the rabbi, and then the rabbi buys it back at the end of Passover from them. And obviously there is some sort of what's the word I'm looking for? Some sort of profit that the non-Jew gets from when he or she buys or sells the leaven back to the rabbi. So this way everyone wins on the deal. They do know that it's the non-Jews do know that it's a temporary sale. Now, honestly, I've never been to one of these sales. I could probably try to dig up some pictures of some of these sales, and it's amazing where you're going to have one rabbi. It's it's almost a pyramid to a degree, where you're going to have one rabbi acting on behalf of multiple rabbis who are acting on behalf of their congregation. So it could really spread out pretty far. But they have a bunch of them in the room, and they go through the entire process, breaking it all down. It's the Jew does not, and it's usually somebody that they've used for a long time, someone that is generally a more of a well-educated professional, I would say, and it's not, treated lightly or as a joke. This is a very serious type of procedure that needs to be done for Passover. So, what happens is, like I said, the rabbi will sell it to the non-Jew, and the non-Jew, in the contract, it states that the non-Jew does have the ability to come in at any point in time to anybody's home and buy what they want, cash and carry, cash on the barrelhead, and they could walk out with whatever they want. Be that, a nice malted scotch, or if that's the right term for it, or anything along those lines, they can go ahead and do it. I happen to know who the non-Jew that my synagogue uses, because he's a local person. I've seen him. He actually helps out in the shul sometimes for different things. So I talk to him. I say hi to him occasionally, just to be nice. But that is what it is. Interestingly enough, 2 years ago, with the outbreak of COVID when it happened, there was a very big issue for my synagogue specifically, and I'm sure others as well, where the rabbi had contracted COVID. So the question is, he can't make the sale. We had to wind up selling it through somebody else whom I had never used. And there is some, in that type of thing, there is some blind faith that the rabbi is going to be performing his job. I don't think that the rabbi would not be doing this with not performing his job properly. I have heard stories that have been asked in response to literature. Some of them have been asked in response to literature. Some in other. I've heard stories about where the guy that was the guy that was supposed to be buying the leaven the day that the day of Passover Eve, never showed up, or showed up extremely, and then when they found him, he was dead drunk. I mean, he was extremely drunk and passed out, not living. That would be another thing. So they had to try to sober him up, try to figure out, it can be a hairy situation. So that is, let's see here. Am I missing any other questions? Yes, so we do buy it back at the end of Passover, like I had mentioned. The rabbi usually buys it back at that point and goes ahead and will, like I said, throw something in for profit so that the person appreciates that fact. Let's say they're just temporarily theirs. They know that. They also know that they could come in and buy it at any point in time that they just so desire, as long as they're willing to pay for whatever they bought. In my case, not really a lot that they would want to buy, unless they want to buy some cereal or macaroni or something like that we have that we're selling. Okay, so it is just, and we're not in ignorance. I mean, I guess in a way we're acting on trust and on faith with this. Since it is generally done via a community rabbi, you are going to trust that individual because he is your community rabbi. Now, I don't think I talked about it last time, but it's in that Passover episode. But what is interesting is when you get into commercial sort of leavened products, where somebody, let's say, is a cookie distributor or a beer distributor. And what's interesting about those are you are also not allowed to purchase leaven on Passover or receive leaven on Passover. So let's say if you have a beer, which is definitely leaven because it's made out of wheat, it's made out of all those types of things. and you receive some leaven on the, some beer on Passover in a shipment, what happens? What is the Jewish law with that? And organizations such as the Orthodox Union, which is one of the ginormous players in the kosher industry of kosher certification industry, does deal with these things on a year in, year out basis when it comes to Passover stuff, and they handle all these types of things. And it's quite interesting to go through the process and understand it, and when you get into the details of it and the finer points of the law, which obviously I'm not trying to give you. I'm trying to give a basic overview to create a better understanding, because that's what I'd like to do. But that is the feedback from follow-up question from the podcast that we had a couple of weeks ago. And obviously you too can re-listen to the podcasts. All you got to do is go to notarabbi.pod.com. All episodes from all seasons are up on the website over there. Feel free to take a listen to anything that you would like to. Now, getting back into the other question, where we are just... I almost forgot, and I totally did forget. Once again, I like to express my appreciation to the Fifth Channel Discord server for allowing me to go ahead and use their server for the live recording of the podcast. Always appreciated. I believe I do have a link up at notarabbi.pod.com for you to go ahead, and if you would like to join the Discord channel for the show, you can click on that link and you can watch the show as well. We could watch it live and then listen to it again in your podcast feed, because everybody, of course, is subscribing and everyone is listening, watching it. And of course, and I know this goes without saying, I'm going to just say it because I know it's anyway the case, everyone goes ahead and leaves a review. If it's positive, I much appreciate that, and your $5 check is in the mail. If it is a bad review, I appreciate that as well. I don't really mind so much if it's a bad review. Just review. That's all I'm asking you to do, in whatever podcast service you're using to get your podcasts. If you could review and give me a rating, thank you very, very much. Do appreciate it. Moving on to that next question now. And the question is, what is the difference between Hasidic and the ultra-orthodox Haredi groups? How does Chabad fit into that? I ask because in the show, which I believe he's the individual here is talking about the show Stetzel or something like that. I haven't watched it. I'll get to that in a second. It's a show that is on still is on Israeli television, and and it's made its way over to America with English subtitles now, so people are watching it. And so he asked me. He said, he asked because in the show, one of the character's daughters moves away and marries somebody who is a Chabadnik, and the whole group is treated by this character with some derision. Okay, so this falls into the you can't tell the players without a scorecard type of situation, and I am going to try and provide a scorecard with this, or to this. Now, let me just say, with a precursor to all of this, is the fact that I think most divisions that we make within the Jewish community are unnecessary, and they should not be. I just believe that. I think that it divides us more than it does anything else. be that as it may, I'm going to try and explain this a little bit. And I know this question has been in the queue for a while, so I do apologize for not getting to it as quickly as I should have. And that'll be something that I work on this coming year. On a lot of different fronts in terms of leaving things to the last minute. But so let's talk about this now. How I would put it, and this again is my own position on it and my own philosophy. Hasidic groups are generally are going to be wearing. The men are going to be wearing long black coats. They're going to be wearing up hats, and on Shabbos they're going to be wearing a special fur hat that they have, which is called a strimal, and they are following their Rebbe or Rebbe, and this is generally they have been dynasties that have gone from the 18th century or 19th century. I always mix it up. But either the 17th or 18th century, and they in Eastern Europe. And the reason that they dress like this is so they are creating a differentiation between they were creating a differentiation between the non-Jews and the Jews in the town, that they wanted to say, we are Jewish, and we're not part of the rest of civilization. So that is the Hasidic groups. The ultra-orthodox Haredi groups are individuals that also we're going to be wearing black. They'll be wearing black pants, generally a short black jacket, generally a hat with a brim that goes down, generally, although a lot of the boys these days do not put the brim down, which is much to my consternation, but that's just how I roll. Anyway, it's no legal reason to put, okay, I'll put that aside. But, and generally they are going to be individuals who will be sitting there as once they get married, they'll be continuing to study and to learn Torah for the sake of learning Torah, and they are in a generally what's known as or considered a post college type of graduate school, which is the kollel, and they generally will get it in Israel. They get a stipend from the government. This is part, and they do not, and all the Hasidic and Haredi individuals in Israel generally do not join the Israeli army, the Israeli Defense Force, which is probably another topic for another day. I tend to not to want to talk about those types of topics specifically because it's a huge powder keg, and not only that, I don't think I'm going to be changing anybody's decision whether to do something or not, even though I have my own personal opinions on it. So what's the point? And I try to stay out of Israeli politics, both the politics of who should be the next prime minister to these types of politics, because I don't live there. So why should I even bother? In any event, so that is the ultra-Orthodox and the Haredi groups. Now, how does Chabad fit in with this? Very interesting question. Chabad is actually a Hasidic group in a way. Actually, not in a way, they are. However, they do not comport in the usual ways of dress that the rest of the Hasidic world does. For whatever reasons, they were generally in Eastern Russia, far east, really cold areas of Russia. White Russia is what it's known as, and that's where they were based, and a lot of time, and why they are met with derision these days is an unfortunate situation where the seventh Lubavitcher Rebbe, Rabbi Menachem Mendel Schneerson, passed away. I believe that was 1993 or 1994, and they have not gotten a new. They have not installed a new leader since, because they felt he was such a wonderful leader, and he was a tremendous wellspring of Torah knowledge, and not just wellspring of Torah knowledge. He had, general knowledge as well. He had a degree from the Sorbonne in France. He took philosophy classes in the University of Berlin. So he's not in the 1930s. So he's not somebody, that, or maybe not even the 1930s. It was probably earlier than that. But he's not somebody that was a dummy. And he had tremendous insights. And one of the things that is, and he was extremely insightful. And every time you hear something about him, at least if I hear something about him, he always strikes me as somebody that is very insightful. Now, the problem here is why there's this derision that happens is because a lot of times actually not a lot of times, but there are individuals who believe that the Rebbe is the Messiah. So you're going to say, hey, he's dead. How could he be the Messiah? Well, therein lies the problem. He should not. These individuals may have believed that he was the Messiah while he was living, but if he is dead, that kind of breaks the deal in Jewish theology and things like that. So he can't be. Like I said, he may have had the ability while he was alive to be the Messiah. We don't know that, and I try to stay away from those types of questions. I'm very, very pro what Maimonides wrote in saying that we're not going to know who or what's going on until it actually happens. And so that's exactly how I leave it, and how I like to go ahead and take care of those types of questions. So they've really fallen into derision, the Chabad group, because of this. Now and you'll also notice them a lot of times. They will be on Passover time. They will be handing out matzah to everybody on right before Rosh Hashanah, which is actually coming up shortly, and I'll probably be talking about that over in the next episode or two. They are handing out honey to people on Sukkot, on Sukkot. What they're doing is they're making sure that all Jewish men get the ability to shake the lulav and the esrog. Also, during the rest of the year, they're going ahead and making sure that all Jewish men put on tefillin. They will ask you, "Excuse me, are you Jewish? Do you want to put on tefillin?" They have these huge they call them mitzvah tanks, but they're not an actual tank. They are an RV, right? They have a huge RV that is decked out to take care of and help, and get the people into the RV, put tefillin on or other things like that. And their goal, and one of the main goals of the seventh Lubavitcher Rebbe was to connect all Jews to Judaism in some way, even a small minor way. Some people don't like them because they're pushy sometimes. I'm not going to get there, but this is why. But a lot of the reason why they're considered with derision is based on the over-reverence, I would say, that they do still have for the seventh Rebbe. There's another Hasidic group that has done this, and they've been hundreds of years without a new Rebbe. Full disclosure, by the way, my father-in-law was Chabad, and I respected him greatly. Disagreed with him on a lot of things, but I respected him. Just as total aside, the anniversary of his death, what we call the Yartzeit, which is a Yiddish word for day of the year, and that happened last Tuesday, the second day of the month of Elul on the Jewish calendar. But anyway, so I have a more accepting view of them than others do. I think they're making a mistake with what they're doing and how they're going about it, but I can't do anything to change that. And what am I supposed to do? I have cousins that I talk to when I see them at weddings, but I don't talk about these things. But I don't view them with the derision that they usually would have. Okay, so that was the feedback and the questions for the episode. Any questions from the chat? Okay, doesn't look like it. With that, once again, thank you for listening to another episode of the Not a Rabbi podcast, season 3, episode 4, where we did a little feedback, little follow-up and question session here, and we covered a little bit more about the selling of the leaven for Passover. In addition to that, we also talked a little bit about the individual groups that there are in the Orthodox community, I guess you could say. Some of them. I didn't get to all of them, and like I said, I am not a big fan of all of the division that happens in grouping out in different ways, and there's a better word for it, which I'll probably come up with after I've finished recording the show. In any event, thank you very much for listening. Hope to see you or hear you or something on the next episode. If you would like, you can always send some feedback to me if you go to notarabbi.pod.com and go ahead and you could go to the feedback and ask a question. Thank you very much for listening. I am Aaron Benedict, and I am not a rabbi.